Hello and welcome to another episode of FinTech Focus TV with me, Toby. Today I am absolutely delighted to be out in Florida where I understand there's cyclones going on with Jared Broad from QuantConnect. Jared, how are you?
Hi, Tony. I'm great, thank you. How are you?
Really, really good, thanks. And tell me, so these cyclones, you safe?
Yeah, keeping dry for the moment. Hopefully it's going to miss my part of Florida, but yeah, I hope it's not too bad for Tampa.
Likewise. Now, listen, I'm really excited to have you on here. We've been talking a little bit about the story, and there's a lot to talk about. So we're going to get into all of that. We're going to talk through where you're at, where you're heading, what you've done. But first and foremost, Jared, tell us who you are and what QuantConnect do.
My name is Jared Broad. I'm the CEO and founder of QuantConnect. I'm a New Zealander, biomedical engineer. For a while now, we've been building QuantConnect, which is a platform for quants to design and trade algorithms. They can write these algorithms in Python and pull down on terabytes and terabytes of financial data, and then trade it through to brokerage accounts and exchanges.
I love that, and I love the fact of what you're doing. I think you call it the sort of open source in the space, and what we were talking about when we first started chatting was this democratization of a space where there's been a sort of David and Goliath story happening in that hedge fund world for some time, and this creates a tremendous amount of opportunity. Tell us a little bit about why you started this and what the scale of what it can look like may be. Have we got the next great open source revolution right here in front of us?
I think so. The vast majority of the investment industry is moving to quantitative trading. 5-10 years ago, it was like maybe 5 or 10% of the industry, and now we're up to about 30, 40, 50% of the industry are employing these quantitative techniques to manage capital. And then in order to do that, though, it's extremely challenging. There are so many challenges with just obtaining, cleaning, working with this large data sets that people need to work with, linking and modeling all of it so that you can track securities through time, and uniquely, like really gritty work that needs to be done right in order to build a good quant strategy that you can trust and rely that's giving you what you would expect. And then on top of that, there's this massive just educational barrier too. The knowledge of quant trading is relatively closed down because nobody wants to share what they know, because that reduces their edge in the market. And the same thing with the infrastructure. Nobody wants to share their infrastructure because once you've invested all this work into building it, that becomes your competitive advantage. And so the industry is kind of stuck in the 80s in sort of technology senses. The rest of the sort of West Coast technology leaps ahead because of sharing and open source and collaboration. But the finance industry is kind of backwards. So we're taking a very different approach. We want to sort of use radical open source in the world of finance and see what happens.
So I think the interesting thing for me about this is that the world of finance has traditionally been quite conservative, and I think probably the pandemic has given this digital advance in the space that we haven't seen before. So I think about cloud technology and how far or how late it was as a laggard to other industries within finance for obvious reasons, because security and fear as much as anything else.
Right.
And then we see a lot more talk about interoperability right now than we've ever seen before, and I've seen a lot more cooperation over the last few years in the space than ever before. But within that, we see an industry that's traditionally put its buffers up and been very conservative because of regulation and the implications of getting this sort of stuff wrong, and potentially because of the size and scale of competition you've got in the space to not want to share and to not want to lose competitive advantage. And when everything is as tight as it is on latency and the advantages and the gains that people get, there's traditionally been a little bit of kickback to some of the innovation that we've seen in this sector. So tell me how you're breaking down that barrier and how you guys move that further forward and break down that sort of thing, because there's a whole world of opportunity behind that, right?
Yeah, you're touched on so many different points.
But I ramble.
I think the kernel there, though, was that the industry is changing for some reason. And I think our hypothesis about that is that the industry is being driven by cost, just like every other industry. In the 80s, it was maybe less competitive and they were able to create edges easier. But these days, the cost of live data is going up, the cost of the infrastructure is going up. And in order to remain competitive, they have to meet all these new regulations and everything else you're saying. So it's like that effectively just increases their cost. And then you get all the fee compression from people saying, hey, you're not even beating the benchmark. Like, you should be, so there's people under fee compression as well. That drives people to get creative. They really start to tangibly evaluate, like, is this a competitive advantage for us? Or is this just plumbing? Like, is this really where our secret sauce is? And 99% of the time, you can say this just isn't a competitive advantage, and now this is just plumbing, and we should just focus and outsource this part of the company. So smart funds are looking at the cloud and looking at using vendors and open source projects like QuantConnect to help them remain competitive and really divert the resources towards alpha research and getting better returns.
It's incredible, isn't it? And there's numerous different challenges in the marketplace that you're coming up against, all the time, I imagine. And actually, I'll park that for a second and come back to the interesting thing for me here is there are so many different businesses that start up where it's as you say, it's a nice to have rather than a need to have. And to me, having spoken over the last couple of years to hundreds of businesses who've been really developing and moving further forward recently, is they fall very very categorically into the category of where it's businesses there that move the needle, where it's something there that either and I say this all the time on the show, reduces friction, increases efficiency, reduces costs, or increases productivity. When you look at all of those different things together, that can have an explosive impact on a business that engages with that particular company.
Right.
So tell us a little bit about how you fit into that quadrant and why it's a business there that really is moving the needle.
I heard a similar statement, but it was is either increasing revenue or reducing risk.
So that makes it easier, right?
Yes, very, very similar to your statement. Yeah. So there's two parts. You have a team of, say, 5 engineers. How much of their time is being spent on alpha search and alpha generating activities versus plumbing, versus connecting to fixed APIs, monitoring, logging, really menial, boring stuff that, in our opinion, should be done once, done right, and open sourced. So our kind of mantra is that when you turn on your computer and you log into Windows and you plug in your mouse, you don't even think about the fact that there's all sorts of technology that connects all of these pieces together, and it just works, and you get straight to getting productive in Word or whatever you're working on. We think the financial systems and technology should just be the same. You should just plug them in, and all of the connectivity and all the data sets, it just works, and it's all open source, and you can just pull from the open source. So in doing that, you're reducing risk massively, because you're not needing to re-implement the same technology with closed sourced implementations, which have bugs, and you don't want to sort of get through to live trading and realize you have a bug in your fixed connection to your brokerage and then lose money. So there's just having the benefit of having 10,000 eyes look at the source code and make sure that your connections and data integrations are all perfect. And then the second part of it is that your people are much more productive. You're able to spend all that time on alpha and alpha search rather than writing those connections. So it's an increase in revenue, in a sense, to help them find more alpha and get better returns. And then for the industry, there's kind of this big shift happening. You've got firms that are starting up that are being faced with these massive barriers to entry, with very expensive data, very complex technology. In order to sort of get routing and rack space and hardware, it's just millions of dollars. It starts to add up. And so in order to afford a few $1 million startup expense, you really need 100 plus, 200 plus million in assets to be able to afford that startup expense. And so that really basically shifts the market towards the larger institutions. And then we start getting this concentration of wealth in the industry. And so I think of us as the ultimate painkiller for this entire new generation of fund startups who have no way to start up without QuantConnect. There's just no way that they can build a fund without us. It's like you've heard the painkiller versus vitamin thing. Yes. Seth Cohen says you're either a painkiller or a vitamin.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's brilliant. And actually, I was listening to something earlier on a different podcast, funny enough, where it talks about preventative and reactive in medicine, and it's exactly the same sort of thing, isn't it? So I think Western medicine is designed on curing stuff after it's happened, and Eastern medicine is about prevention, afterwards, and getting ahead of the curve. And I think that's probably something again which you're talking about here, isn't it?
Yeah, it's just that those larger funds that have the budgets, they can afford to do it, and they can have 1,000 engineers on staff and just hire and build everything they need. And those smaller ones, we're just the only way they can do it. It's just, they have to embrace open source to be competitive, try and do it.
Yeah. So how are they doing that at the moment? I mean, you've obviously come on the scene and you're saying that's you are the way that happens. How are companies competing at the moment, or are they just not right now?
An ashamedly large number of quant funds still use Excel.
Yeah.
So the sort of quiet joke is that we're competing against Excel a lot of the time.
Yeah. It's amazing. It's amazing how common that is, isn't it?
Right. And so in doing that, they 90% of the time make the same mistakes over and over again, because it's so easy to make certain mistakes when you're using Excel or any similar bolted together internal platform. Those mistakes are kind of like the cardinal sins of quant trading. And if you make those cardinal sins, you're going to end up with something that doesn't work in live trading. By using a platform like QuantConnect versus Excel or anything else you bolt together, you'll avoid all those cardinal sins. And just examples are like selection bias. So in my Excel model, I download Apple data and I start building a model with Apple. And then I think that I'm a genius because my Apple strategy has produced 500% returns over the last few years. And, Apple's gone up 17,000% or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So we build in all of that, those avoidance techniques to really generate a robust quant strategy.
Incredible. And so talk to us about how it's gone. So I love growth businesses. I love companies that are on the move, that are providing this, identifying these sort of blind spots and providing solutions that really drive people further forward. So talk to us about the journey. Where did you start and where are you at now?
We were ahead of the curve. And originally I was running a small fund for myself. But actually before I got to that, I love the markets and I just love to trade. And I started manually trading, and like an engineer, I was like, oh, my manual trading is poor. I need to automate this. I need to write a strategy and code this up. And so I started to build some sort of automation around my ideas and started to build testing frameworks to be able to test them. And it was just incredibly difficult. And at the time I was living in Chile, and I was doing humanitarian work. So it was I had some free time on my hands, and it basically, I stopped and was working full time for about 2 years to really get a robust algorithmic trading framework going. And that really opened my eyes that this is absolutely impossible for any engineer that has a day job and a family and kids. Like, there's no way that you can do this without like a full-time 12 hours a day, 7 days a week kind of commitment that you can only really give in your 20s.
Yeah.
In your mid-20s.
Maybe.
Right. So yeah, we started in Chile. We raised some grant funding from the Chilean government, and myself and a kind of early co-founder, we were bootstrapping the company, just trying to raise angel funding for this crazy thing called Quant Trading. And people were like, "You're crazy. You're in Chile. Who are you?" So we had no choice. We just like, okay, we have to bootstrap this, and we basically spent some time building the technology and just really converting what I had done for myself and for my own personal little fund into the technology that QuantConnect uses today. And then over time, we won some angel funding, traveled to New York, and was sort of trying to meet investors and raise capital there. And there was one moment where I was sleeping on somebody's sofa, and I was like, I just raised my first $10,000 angel check. Like, should I pay off my credit card, which had about 10,000 in debt on it, or should I put it all into this equities data that I needed to buy so that I could actually put the equities data into the platform? So I was like, okay, we're all in, let's buy the equities data.
Yes.
So there's some hairy moments there over the years. We got the angel investment, we went live trading, and now we've started to grow like live trading and other asset classes, and grow the team. Eventually we moved to New York, and we sort of founded the company in New York and got an office in Brooklyn, and sort of grew the team in Brooklyn, and just kept on making the platform and the technology better and better.
Incredible. So it's been, I love the story. I mean, there's so many different bits to unpack in that, and I don't think any founder story is complete unless you're sort of sat there with a check working out whether you're going to pay off your credit card debts or stick or twist.
Yeah.
Definitely no, there's no founder story which doesn't involve sleeping on a sofa at some stage. So you're ticking all the right boxes. So you talk about that, and you're now moving the business, and as you say, it moves into this this sweet spot where you're in New York, and it's starting to grow, and you're starting to do some really cool things. There's people in the business, there's people in the team. You've secured that angel funding. Tell us about where we're at now. What's it look like today?
Yeah. So the critical little change we made to the company was right during the pandemic. We realized that we were restricting people from using QuantConnect unintentionally. And so what we did was we changed the platform to better support organizations and companies starting up. And so that was like dead in the pandemic. April 2020, we launched the new version of the product. And basically it makes it look like Amazon Web Services. When you spin up a node in Amazon Cloud, and you can spin it up and spin it down, or spin up 10 of them if you want, and you can resize and configure your account as you like. So that little insight allowed us to really explode, and we started to better support these funds and these startup organizations building on QuantConnect. Now we've got about 220,000 registered users. And so these are sort of engineers, they might work at a technology company, and they have day jobs and families. There's about 30% who are full-time quants working in a financial firm, 30% engineers, and like 30% traders and academics and students, and a big mix of people. And roughly 10% are these startups, these sort of funds building on QuantConnect, or like a desk in a larger fund. So often, yeah, so often we've got when larger funds start up a desk, they're just like, here's 50 million, go make money. So the desk has the full...
where's the catch?
You have to make money. Yeah. So the desk has full direction over what they do to earn the returns. So if it's a quant trading desk, they'll often sort of pull on our open source project or pull on our cloud project and just start trading with the technology we provide, because it's the fastest way to market. They don't need to build anything themselves or do a whole bunch of hacking. They can just sort of pull everything we've got and use it for their fund. So yeah, it's kind of, I think of it as like the biggest quant research platform in the world. It's just made up with like an army of quant researchers on thousands of different organizations.
That must be a cool thing to be able to reflect on now. I mean, I know you put your blood, sweat, and tears into all of this, but what a great feeling to talk about that sort of number and that sort of claim. Yeah, because that's a lot of intelligent people doing some pretty powerful things in that space, right? The scale is enormous, right?
Yeah, no, I absolutely love our user base. They are really intelligent.
Yeah.
You can't get away with anything. That's like, you have to be in all the time and 100% like accurate with everything you say and do. So yeah, it's a fun challenge. It's really every single day we're pushed to the absolute limits of what we know and what we need to do, and that's why I love working here. That's why, you know, it keeps me going.
Well, you can see it sort of like pours out your face every time you start talking about it, which is a good thing to do. I love it when people have got a passion for what they're doing. So let's talk about where this goes next. So you're at a stage now where you've done something as exciting as we've just been speaking about. you've spoken about the journey and where you've gone from bootstrapping to taking some angel investment to where you're at now with the business. Talk to us about what you're looking at. I understand you're going through some crowdfunding at the moment. Tell us why, what you're doing, what the opportunity is, and actually, why people should be getting in touch with you to get on board that, because it sounds like it could be a bit of a rocket ship to be getting involved in right now, right?
Yeah, awesome. So we see ourselves as the operating system for quant finance for the sort of next generation. We are laying this foundation now of building data set integrations and building brokerage integrations, so that if you're a quant fund starting up, or a desk at a larger fund, or whoever you are, it's an absolute no-brainer to start up on QuantConnect or Lean, our open source project. So the level of ease of use and the speed to market that we'll be able to provide will be 10 to 100x better than anything else that comes close. When we reach that level, it becomes this ecosystem. It becomes like a market, an ecosystem with thousands of people, with thousands of funds who are all building up and starting in QuantConnect and in Lean. And we're starting to see that now with universities are all sort of changing their curriculums to add in our open source project and teach people how to write to our API. And they're starting to sort of show their students in quant finance masters and that sort of thing how to use Lean and how to use our engine. And we think that'll just keep growing as more and more universities and students learn Lean. They're going to bring it into their employers, and we're going to see a bunch more employers and trading funds using our open source engine. And the world will be so much better for it, because all of this is just plumbing. So all we're doing is doing it and then open sourcing it. And then if you want, you can go and review the code and make sure it's working okay and copy it for your own fund. So previously, you have thousands of people redoing the same work over and over again. It's an absolute mind-boggling how inefficient the world is right now in finance.
It's incredible, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. And this doesn't exist in any other industry. It's just ours, because we're also closed in and secretive about it. So with QuantConnect, our ambition is to grow this ecosystem and to have more people speaking the language, so that we can sell additional services, we can distribute on-premise versions of our user interface, and we can help sell them data. So we can sort of distribute data and get data in place to them. So we're working with a lot of alternative data vendors to onboard all of their alternative data to QuantConnect. And so that way, if for example, you're a fund and you want to do some new sentiment analysis, you can just instantly do the sentiment analysis. You don't need to worry about downloading the data, parsing it, linking it with securities. That's a very painful process that takes months to get right. All of that will just be done in open source. And so for us, we're happy to connect to the data vendor and the fund and sell the data to them and license them our beautiful user interface for the platform, and so that way we can sort of grow the business and serve the next generation of these quant funds that are starting up. We're quite excited also to serve the larger funds. We've got this on-premise version of QuantConnect where they can use our user interface, and we invest a lot of effort to make it really beautiful and easy to use. And it kind of works like a quant fund in a box. You can just deploy it on-premise. You can connect remote team members. You can enable collaboration. And so in 2022, how these funds work with hybrid and remote working is going to be quite important too, we think. And so this is all of our cloud technology, which is remote and hybrid first. You can just put it on premise and allow your teams to work together. You can analyze and track them to make sure they're not overfitting and making sort of quant mistakes 101. You can have project managers, guiding the team and allocating resources. And yeah, there's lots and lots of opportunity. And we think that this is going to be an absolute clear winner in the space. So
100%. And so when you talk about the crowdfunding, who's the right people to get involved with you on this? Who are you looking to partner with?
Yeah, we're raising up to 5 million. In my ideal world, it's a mixture of the angels, venture, and our users. I would really love our community and the funds that are building off QuantConnect to be a large part owners in the company.
Definitely, that makes absolute sense, doesn't it?
Right, have them help us set the direction, when they want certain features built, we can sort of spend the funding that they're giving us to go and build and build the business out. So, yeah.
Very, very exciting. And so when they want to get involved in this and find out more, what's the best way for people who are watching it to reach out and do that?
Yeah, so it's at wefunder.com/QuantConnect. And you can find all the information on the company, the roadmap, the finances. And yeah, I'd love to hear from people. So if you have any questions, reach out to me. I'm at jared@QuantConnect.com.
And Jared, I hear it's been going all right so far.
Yeah, so far we're up to about 550,000 raised, and it's still very early days though. So
that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Fantastic. And that's from that sort of demographic you've been looking to raise from as well, right?
Yes, exactly. Currently all from the community.
That's brilliant. I think there's no greater testament to to something there where you've got either your clients or your community that are investing back into it. So you're clearly making the right sort of strides. And I think when I look at all of the the great communities that we've seen grow through tech, it's come from the power of the passion that they've had for that particular product or products, which they've been involved in. And evangelism is a great thing when you can get it right. And it sounds like when you talk about everything you've spoken about so far, it's a great way for me to finish my day. I love talking to people who are passionate about what they're talking about, and I love people who are on something there where they fully believe in the scale and scalability of what it's doing. As you say, that when it's got that transformational element to what it can do,
right,
that becomes pretty exciting as well, right?
Yeah, no, it drives us.
Well, something's got to drive us all, hasn't it? And there's nothing more noble than the cause. So Jared, listen, it's been fantastic talking to you and having you on the show. I really wish you the very, very best of luck with that. I know there'll be people looking at this and I have got discussions all the time with people who are very passionate about this area as well. And it's been a big growth area recently, I think, is the other side of it. There's a lot of innovation that we're suddenly seeing from what I think has traditionally been quite a sleepy space, and there's a lot of appetite for it. So I wish you the very, very best of luck with the raise. I've got no doubt that you'll be smashing it in no time whatsoever. If you're listening and watching the show or listening to the podcast and want to hear more, then Jared's given the details out beforehand. Please do get in touch with him. He's doing something brilliant, and that's what we love to hear on this show. Jared, it's been wonderful having you on. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Toby. Really appreciate the opportunity.
Absolute pleasure. And thank you all for watching. We will see you soon on another episode of FinTech Focus TV. Thanks very much.